Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Universal Dialect Show. Today's going to be a great show, and it's also a milestone for myself. It's show number 20 for me, and I couldn't have a better guest on for my 20th show. Ron Morehead, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Carl. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Listen, you're very well known for the Sierra Sounds, and I know that whole incident wasn't something where you just kind of went up in the mountains, recorded some sounds, went back home, and that was it. Like there's more things in depth to that, to what happened, and I would imagine it spanned more than one day. Is that correct?
Oh, more than 1 year. Yeah.
More than 1 year. Okay, all right. So normally, I introduce the guest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that you're an adventurer, a researcher, you're an author, as far as I know, of two books. The latest one is The Quantum Bigfoot, and a producer of the Sierra Sounds. So normally what I do is I have the guests go into their origin story and then what led them on the path, but it's obvious what led you on the path, right? So just give me a little brief bio of
Sure.
your beginnings, and then what led you to the Sierra Sounds, and then get into that story, please, if you can.
Okay. I will. I'll start right now. Want me to? Ready to go?
Rock and roll. Let's rock and roll,
All right.
Ron.
Yeah, it was 1971 when I was involved with, well, I had some friends that were hunters, and one of the guys came out and he got frightened off by these sounds from some kind of a monster up there. He didn't know what it was, but he saw the huge footprint. He just took off, and the other guys were my friends, but I wasn't a hunter at the time. He came out and told the wives, what was going on up there. What the Johnson brothers had told them about was true. There's some kind of something up there that's not what's supposed to be around. Anyway, he wouldn't go back and check on the other guys because they were a day late coming out, and so the wives were worried. He invited me to go back with him, so that's how I got started in 1971. So I started going back ever since I got. I did experience them then and started experiencing them, and we all started taking tape recorders. It wasn't until 1972, the winter of '72, when we got snowed out. This place is very remote. It's 8 miles in the wilderness, 8,400 feet in elevation in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And we all started recording the things. It was 1972, the winter. Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, he wrote a letter to Ivan Sanderson explaining that we always have multiple encounters with these big giants of some type. And we referred to them as Bigfoot because they had a big foot, and they're just big people or big somethings. And even Ivan Sanderson, who was a cryptozoologist at the time, thought it was probably somebody pulling his leg, and he did send the letter off to Peter Byrne, who was in Oregon at the time, and Peter Byrne thought the same thing. Nothing like this happens to people. They see a Bigfoot more than once in their lifetime. They got hit by a lightning twice.
Right.
Kind of like one of those things.
Yes, sir.
And that's pretty much how most of it happens. But our story is a little different. So he contacted Al Berry down in Redding, California, who was an investigative reporter working for a newspaper at the time. And Al thought the same thing, but I'll go down and talk to these guys to see what they got. So we let him listen to some of the things we recorded in '71 and ended up inviting him in. He wanted to go in. And at that time, we didn't know these guys were all thinking we were hoaxers, But Al Berry got up there and he realized just how far in it is. But he was still looking for who could be pulling this off. He was an investigative reporter, and he was, I guess I found out later, he was going through our packs when we were out walking around doing stuff like that, trying to find out if anybody could be fooling him. Anyway, he got caught up in it, and he wrote a book, and he ended up taking the sounds to different people, trying to. This was 1976, I think it was, 75, something like that, trying to get some academia somewhere to study the tapes and see what's going on, see if they were real or if somebody could have been pulling that off. And I first went to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University, who thought he was just a student and was mad at him for failing him or something like that. So he thought he was pulling a leg. Anyway, Al never knew Dr. Lieberman at all, but he went to several people that were just giving him the runaround, thinking went to another one in Washington, academia, a PhD there, that thought he was a student trying to hoax him. So because nothing's supposed to be able to talk like these things were talking and have sounds like these things were having up there, unless you're human. And so anyway, he finally got a Dr. Curlin at the University of Wyoming to take the sounds. He said, I just want to know unbiased, what they are, if they're real or if they're not. So Dr. Curlin spent a year studying on with a student, and he came out with a paper on it and gave a speech at the Anthropology Unknown in British Columbia, at the University of British Columbia in 1978, I think. I forgot. Anyway,
Somewhere in there, yeah.
somewhere in the 70s, yeah.
Right.
So he said that showed that they were outside the human range and represented an animal, compared to the human vocal cords anyway, an animal over 8 foot tall. And he said they were inside, outside, below, and above the human range. And he showed this on a graph in what he wrote. And it came out in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial. And as thorough as that was, and as good as that was, it just wasn't enough to get these PhDs out of their paradigm thinking these have to be, if they're out there at all, they have to be some type of ape that hadn't been discovered. And so that kind of went, that's as far as it went for a while. He kept trying to find somebody that would give us more information on the sounds. And Al had the original, his sounds he did something different. He uses different cassette tape, brand new, and each time he went up there to do this. And we were all recording, but we'd go back at home, take our cassettes, transfer on a reel to reel, and use the cassette over again.
Right.
That's not a good thing to do if you're going to have.
No, because it damages after a while, right? It just,
yeah, right.
The quality.
So anyway, he got Curlin's report, and after that, we had a cryptolinguist in 2008, Scott Nelson, two-time graduate of the transcription school in Monterey, California. And I had him vetted very well. He's got a real good letter back from the teacher. He says, if a two-time graduate of this school, he's more than qualified to transcribe a language. And Scott Nelson transcribed a language. Now, he didn't translate it. He just transcribed it as a language by the human definition of language. That's very critical, very important, because only humans are supposed to have that, according to Dr. Lieberman. So if that's the case, well, you got Professor Curlin, who says it's outside the human range representing an animal. And you got a Dr. Benson, I think it was, at Texas A&M, who also corroborated that, but he didn't do a full study on it. He just didn't have time. He was a teacher there. And but he said it did represent something that sounded like it was about 8 foot tall. Al also went to the people that did the Nixon tapes. He tried to get them to look at it, but they don't do that stuff for free. But they did listen to him. They said, you need to get somebody to take this on because it's too powerful to be a human making this. So anyway, there's kind of the background of it.
Right.
We've had the studies done. And so to me, it tells me that these things have a human component to them, and they have language. And that's also been kind of said in a couple of DNA studies that there's a human component to the DNA. And yet academia, classical academia, who've been trained within parameters, they give it thumbs down because they say it has to be contaminated if it's got human DNA in it, because only humans, this is human. So anyway, there's where I go with it. And so I wrote a book, Voices in the Wilderness, on my experiences up there. It comes with a download of the sounds when I get to the context, or my sounds are also available on CDs, as people know. But I produced the stuff because I thought the public should know. It's been a long time now. I've been doing this for over 50 years, so studying this and reporting it and talking to people about it. I traveled really around the world, looking at different things. In Peru, Bolivia was probably my big eye opener when I seen what was on down there. So anyway, there's where we are. I just want my story to get across because where it led me was because of the strangeness that was involved up there. And there was a lot of strange things goes on. Al Berry had a master's degree in science, by the way. He said, don't talk about the strange stuff up here. No one's going to want to talk to you, So we didn't for a long time. Him and I went on talking different places about this. But I do now because really too many people are reporting the same thing that we went through up there, seeing strange things, hearing strange things, seeing these Bigfoots disappear, seeing how does that stuff work? Well, he said, whatever you do, if you talk about this at all, talk about science. Stay with science. Otherwise, you just got to stay with science.
You're going to lose people, right?
You lose people. So But classical science didn't answer the stuff that we was hit with up there. Just things, lights, not just lights. I saw a UFO one time. That's not a big deal. A lot of people see those nowadays, but how they do what they do, and that's, I think I mentioned this in one of my books, how we thought the camp was being tore apart out there, and we looked out there later, and nothing had been changed. I mean, the barrels were still cabled to the trees. We'd taken up there with the mules. And keep in mind, this is 8 miles in the wilderness, and it's just really imposing to get to, and nobody's around up there except us.
Right.
These things were there, So really, they kept coming back, and we saw just different things, and I get into all that stuff, but it led me into quantum physics, and that is a science. And it's not the woo-woo factor. It's not the paranormal. Right. It's not that at all. It just answers a lot of those things that are there.
So Ron, real quick, if we can go back just a little bit, because, all right, so you went out because an individual that was with his friends got scared and left his friends behind, which goes to show you how good of a friend he is. He left them behind. But anyway,
well, they were scheduled to be there.
Right. So he comes and he gets you. But prior to any of this happening, what was your stance on the paranormal and Bigfoot before this?
I didn't have a stance. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on their radar. Nobody was looking for Bigfoot up there. That camp had been,
right.
These Johnson brothers been going up there since 1958. So it was really a well-established hunting camp for them. And
how remote was that?
8 miles in the wilderness from the closest place you can drive to. And it's just really imposing to get there. So that's what's ludicrous about people thinking we just backed our truck up, had a 6-pack of beer, and recorded these sounds.
I understand, right, because it was treacherous terrain, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had horses go off the cliff with me up there, and I've had stuff like that go on. I've had broken ribs. We've all had issues going up there, and it's just imposing. But still, once you get there, it's like paradise. It's just really just in place. So.
And were there water sources nearby? Because I heard
there was. Yeah,
okay, because I heard Bigfoot's normally around water sources.
Well, there's a spring right there. A lot of huge boulder outcroppings up there too. We're just below the tree line, 8,400 feet where we were.
And so when you got called out there and you went to go find these friends with that individual, were you automatically having incidents happening? Like what was happening when you first? Did you find them? Did you find them? Did you find those friends? Were they cowering under?
Oh no, they weren't cowering at all. They're hunters with big rifles.
Right.
These guys are thinking they're just an ape up there. If it comes after me, I'm going to shoot it.
Right.
And they would have. I'm sure they would have, because you hear the original sounds. They're very aggressive. We went up there. I would just look around every tree because my imagination's the only thing could affect me then. Because what could this be? It's a monster, is what we knew. And so when we got up there, the guys, they were scheduled to come out a day earlier. They were just stayed there longer because of things going on. And so that's when I saw my first footprint, and that's when I heard the sounds that they had recorded the night before. And fortunately, Bill, my good friend, who I ended up packing with, buying mules and horses, so let me ride his horse out, because my iron hard legs that I thought was in good shape were rubber at that time.
Right.
You go to 8,400 feet from sea level, and you think you're in shape, but the air's lighter, your muscles get taxed, and
correct,
turn into rubber or jello. But it's been an adventure, I got to tell you.
Right. Okay. So I've heard these vocals for the longest time. I want to say I first started hearing them probably in the 90s. When they started, because to me, there was a time where you, maybe In Search Of was the only show that would show things like UFOs, and that's the first time I saw the Patterson Gimlin film. But after that, there weren't a lot of shows, and then in the 90s, all these shows exploded. You had UFO Files, History Channel had a bunch of documentaries, and that's when I first heard the Sierra Sounds. But they only played very little pieces of it, and they only maybe spoke to you very, very little. But it wasn't until maybe the 2000s when I saw more interviews with you and I started hearing more of the sounds. And there's a part in there where you're sort of communicating with this creature. Now, normally people, when they hear this, they're quiet. They don't want to interact with what's out there. They kind of don't want to give away where they're at. What prompted you to want to go back and forth with these creatures?
Well, it was 1974 when that happened, and
Correct.
prior to that, we'd only heard them from inside the shelter. Got glimpses of them every once in a while, but they wouldn't start really making their chatter. It's really rapid chatter. Well, after we got inside the shelter, and you step out and try to see them, and they just wouldn't make a sound. You didn't know where they were because it's dark, and so
Did you coin it samurai chatter, or did that come from someone
I
else?
come from Matt Moneymaker actually.
Okay.
The BFRO, yeah, he heard him in 1995, just before he started the BFRO, and he said it sounded like a samurai chatter, and he put it on his website, and that's how
Okay.
actually Scott Nelson got a hold of it all. And yeah, it was a trip out, because it's very kind of rocky, treacherous, and anyway, like, didn't talk about that, but it was exciting. Yeah, it's been a big part of my life.
And so what was the area like when you went into that camp? Was it a big camp? Because I know that you guys had not you, but I know that when you got there, and I could be mixing this up. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys had built like a makeshift, sort of like a hut. So was that already established before you got there? Or did you guys
Yeah.
create that yourselves
No,
when you got there?
well, it was created probably in the 50s, late 50s, 60s, something like that, by the Johnson brothers. It's just a group of trees that grew in a circle, and you wrap cable around them and laying deadfall up on the cable. Then you strapped it across the trees up on top and lay deadfall up there and put heavy plastic on that, and then put alder brush on top of the plastic. So it looked like a big beaver's nest. I got a picture of that on my website. And just that's what it was. The doorway was just two trees that grew in a like this, and we just shoved a dead tree in between them for a doorway. Then we wrapped a cable around it and cabled it to the inside, so thinking that would stop anything. I'm not sure it would have.
But did anything come close to that hut?
Oh, they were real outside the hut, yeah. But everyone, the Johnson brothers got a glimpse of it one night. I've laid there on the sleeping bag waiting for a glimpse of one, to break the light and the moonlight and the wall there, but never. I could hear them walking around out there, and hear their chatter and their grunts and all those sounds they make, but I never got to see the break in there. So I
Right.
often wondered why I didn't. When you hear it walking out there, but you don't see anything break the moonlight, that was kind of always a puzzle to me. I should see that. We should all see it. But there's more up there we should have seen that we couldn't see. And I get into that in my quantum Bigfoot, because we only see within frequency. Everything is energy, frequency,
Right.
and vibration. So light's frequency is 420 terahertz to 770 terahertz. That's the only frequency we humans see in. Some animals can see outside that. But
Correct.
there's all these other frequencies out there, and they have something in them. I'll get into that, and also our olfactory sense, how it's limited. We don't see near or don't smell things like a bear or a dog does, but we don't hear like a dog does. They hear an
Right.
ultrasound, and big animals communicate in infrasound, which we don't hear, but it affects our feelings. So if I can just convince people that we don't know everything there is to know. Some people think we're humans. We got to be the monster people on this planet,
Right.
if anybody is. We've only been given dominion. We haven't been given domination. So we have the right as humans to experience a lot of stuff, and that's where I'm at. I guess I'm just
Right. And a lot of times we experience things we don't know, and it's okay to not know.
Yeah. What do you learn from it? That's the big
Exactly. So the sounds, when I hear the sounds, a lot of them sound like super close. So were you outside of that hut recording these sounds? And also, were these incidents happening at the same time, meaning at nighttime, or were they happening in the day, night, when you were out there?
Yeah, the sounds were mostly happening at night, and they only happened while we're inside the shelter, except for that night in '74 when I started interacting with them. Because by then we weren't afraid of. I mean, I wasn't afraid, and it's just me and Bill, my friend, who was there with our horses. We packed some supplies in, and before we ever got there, these things were already there. And as soon as it started getting dusk, almost dark, you hear the rock popping, the whooping sounds, and we had learned from the past, you just sort of be still and keep doing what you're doing, because if they don't think they got your attention, they're going to come in a little closer. So we just kept doing. I was fixing our meal, and Bill was putting the packs away from the mules, and and they all of a sudden they started whooping out at me, and I started whoop back. I started trying to mimic them, and that's what I did that night. I don't know what they were trying to say, but I got my recorder out of my saddlebag and I started recording it, and captured that sound when they were yelling out at me, and not just yelling, but saying something.
Right there, just seen movement right through there.
I asked the cryptolinguist because it wasn't an aggressive type chatter like we'd had in 71, 72.
Right.
It was more of a communicative type. He said it's the same vocal mechanism because they're speaking a language there, and it's their language, whatever it is, very complex language. So I've often wondered, could they just be an alien of some type, or are they in a category of these Bigfoot things? So they have a Bigfoot. Their foot is different than the Patterson foot. I mean, as far as the tracks they make, and we got these same tracks over years up there.
What's the difference between your footprints and the Pattersons?
They're bigger, number one. I mean,
Oh, wow.
Unless you found a little one in the snow like we did one time,
Right.
a little 9-inch one. But they're splayed. They're like splayed. 5 toes straight across. Very little arch, if any. Hard to tell it right from the left because when they walk one in front of the other.
Right. So no mid-tarsal break.
Well, I'm not a foot expert, but I never gave those to Jeff Meldrum because I see no upside to it. He's going to compare it to the Patterson film. I shouldn't say what he's going to do, but
Right. I know.
He's asked me, and Al Berry, he said there's no upside to that. It's because everybody believes in the Patterson film and the tracks that the Patterson film left with the mid-tarsal break and all that, which is good. I got one of those, but they're not even. They don't look like ours at all.
Correct.
Ours are different, and I've had a lot of people draw me pictures of what they've seen in different places, and they look like ours. So I think there's different types of these things. I think some of them have been diluted down from inbreeding with indigenous people.
I agree.
And I think some of them are more human-like, and that's what I think the Patterson film was. It's more human-like. It's got almost a human-looking foot, just bigger. So I think they've been bred down. They've been here for eons, and I believe in UFOs and aliens, like most people do now, because the government says we can, right? Without
again,
and we can believe in them now.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we found out that Roswell wasn't really a weather balloon. We found out all these stuff. A lot of people are coming out of the woodwork now and talking about insiders who talk about this stuff, and it's interesting how much stuff has been concealed by our government. But what I find is if the government can control it, they don't want the information out, so they hide it or make fun of it or something. They couldn't control what was going on in Roswell, so they hid it. They tried to tell people something else, and a lot of people bought it. All that was just a weather balloon.
Well, they scared their troops into not saying things like they did to me. So,
so anyway, I get into all that stuff, and Excellent.
So Ron, how many do you think were at that camp of those creatures?
Oh, well, we know there was 3 that night.
For sure.
When
Okay.
when I saw one, and there was, I think there was 4 the year before, because we got 4 different size prints out there that we had saw.
All right. So okay, because I was listening to I think you were at UPARS in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, and you did a little seminar there at UPARS, and you had made a joke about, and I don't know if this happened during the Sierra Sounds incident, about a female arguing with the male, and the female won the argument. Is that correct?
That's what the specialist that listened to the sounds.
Okay.
Nancy Logan said that. Yeah, it's on the CDs. The 2 of them.
Is it on the CDs? Okay.
Arguing. At the time, though, you don't know what's going on. They might be looking for the salt and pepper to put on us, or they might be arguing over the food we left for them. We don't know what the argument was all about.
Right.
I wasn't seeing them. They were right outside the shelter.
Yeah. The reason why I brought that up is because when I heard that, I don't know if you're aware of Wes Germer. I'm pretty sure you know who Wes Germer is. Wes, awesome. He has a great show. There's a show, I think it's episode 515, and it's called are you aware of that show? That episode?
Actually, I talked to that lady personally. Yeah.
Did you? Great. Oh my God. Okay, I was gonna bring it up because that, to me, that's probably his best show. Yeah, it's a great show. And the fact that she said that the female was arguing with the male, essentially to stop the male from probably hurting her. And then when you said that at the UPARS, I made that connection. So what have you what did she say? Did you find anything else out with that?
A lot of it's on Wes's program, but I got information from Wes. Thanks Wes for this. He gave me a connection, asked if it was all right for her if I contacted her, because he played my sounds to her, and she said they're very similar to that, But the screams was what she drew me a picture of what it looked like and sent it to me. And by the way, she's a linguist. A graduate knows 7 different languages. I mean, the ladies know she's a credible person.
She's legit. Yes.
Very legit. But she's seen these things, and one was out in the ocean. The male was out in the ocean pulling up seaweed and throwing it back to females, and she explained it all to me, and probably a little more detail than she got on the program, but Wes's program. But it was just very compelling. But what she said was, when it was screaming, its neck would swell out.
Oh wow!
That's air sacs.
Yeah,
a lot of primates have that, and that was interesting to me because Jeff Meldrum told me years ago. A lot of primates have, like the howler monkeys, they have these air sacs, and they can squeeze and make their sounds project. Because we wondered why, as close as these things were, because we were really trying to get a look at them and try to trick them with a camera or something, and they're always a step ahead of us, but we were underestimating what they were and their intuition and their intellectual scale, I guess, what you call it, because they're just very, very intuitive entities, whatever they are.
Right. And they could project their voice, right, to make themselves sound closer than what they are.
Well, that's the idea, and that's what this thing was doing when that woman saw it, and she drew me a picture of it and sent it to me, and it was my earplug keeps falling out. So
it's okay. No worries, man. You're good, man.
Yeah, she was very, very interesting. She told me about, after she got back to the hotel, how the police were called in to get a report, and they called in a special guy who was in plain clothes. He wasn't a policeman, but he was an investigator. He said, "You saw a bear." You did, trying to talk her out of don't even talk. So that's what they do. If they can't control it, they're going to cover it up and try to hide it. So that's just our government for us. And
right.
I don't trust a whole lot they say anymore. I dig into it myself.
So you're aware of Les Stroud, correct? I'm pretty sure you know.
Oh, I know Les too. Yeah.
Okay. So Les has done the show about Bigfoot. He went out with this individual named Todd Standing, but what he talked about, which I found interesting, is when he started to believe more into the subject, he started to reflect back on incidents that he had in the past that he thought were just general things like other animals. But because of his more future experience or more modern experiences, he realized, okay, that they weren't like regular animals, like hearing growls and hoofs and bluff charges. Did that happen to you at any moment? Because I know you used to hunt prior to that. Were there incidents that you kind of like, maybe that was a Sasquatch back in the days?
No, I really never thought of it. I mean, yeah, you put it off as something else. I mean,
Right.
our brain has a way of only working with what it knows, right?
Correct.
And so it has to fill in the blanks. If you see something, it has to fill in the blanks with what it knows. So until you know something else about what's going on, you don't really know how to fill in that blank. Your brain, no, I wasn't looking for something else, and none of those guys were.
Well, no, not that you were looking, but more of like, now that you know the behaviors of these creatures, were there any incidents in the past that you're like, oh, when I was 14 and I was out in the wilderness, this happened to me and I thought it was a bear, but maybe it wasn't a bear?
No, I
Okay.
really never thought that much of it, because whatever it was, and I can't go back and
I got you.
analyze it, So.
Have you seen an actual Bigfoot at all?
Yeah, that 1974, when I was conversing with him, I saw one. I saw the one that was doing the samurai cry. I wrote this to me. You go shoot
Full
down.
body?
Yeah,
Like
full, that's that's all I say, is full body.
What can you describe what it looked like?
Or full body. No, just a big upright something, humanoid looking.
So no details?
Well, just floating. It was kind of like floating, really rapid down
Right.
through the trees to where the other two were. We think it's an adolescent and a female. And that's the one I was conversing with mostly, was the female down there. And I think the little one, which I got recorded, it's in my sound things. And I think, was getting bold, and she sounded like she was disciplining it. I mean, that's what we were hearing.
Right, like come back here, you're going too close.
Whatever. I don't know, but we've heard that sound before, but this is the first time I ever got on a recording.
Yeah.
And so that's another assault one. It was just really rapid through the trees from where it cried out that samurai cry and then shot down the other two.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because when, a lot of people describe it differently, like how you said, sometimes they say it looks like something like a prehistoric man. Some say it looks like an ape, and then some other people make other descriptions. So it seems like you didn't really get to see that much detail other than.
I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay. I just seen a humanoid, or I say human, it's a large figure shooting down through the trees. The moonlight was out. It was earlier in the evening too.
Right.
And just was nice to just throw me, because my friend Bill saw one too at a different time that same night. And we hadn't seen them really before. As much as we tried to get pictures and things like that, we just couldn't outfox some of these things. We just watched us set the trap up or something. I don't know, they come a different way. But yeah, it was just big. Like I say, it was fast. It was almost like it was floating down through the trees there.
Yeah, what's up with that? A lot of people describe this ice skating, gliding, sort of.
Yeah, it's like, golly, how they do that. Well, it has to get into, they got a mastery over something that we're trying to understand through quantum physics, really. I think we'll get into that.
So let's get into it. Let's get into that. Before. Yeah, let's get into because I know that you wrote a book, How Does Quantum Physics Relate to the Spirituality and Bigfoot? And some of the characteristics are the invisibility, cloaking, and also the telepathic nature of that. Can you get into any of those things?
Sure. As Tesla said, Nikola Tesla, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. If you can understand that, you can get into quantum physics, because that's what quantum physics really comes down to, is we are energy at the most minute level. And once you understand quantum physics, it'll lead you into understanding how things work out through the universe, according to Dr. Christopher Blair at West Texas A&M. Everything from the atom through the cosmos works on the laws of quantum physics. We only live within our three-dimensional environment here, which is Newtonian physics. So you have to graduate that through your consciousness and get into try to imagine the end of the universe. Can't do it. You just have to conceive that it's there. Well, it isn't. There could be no end, right? How could there be an end? So that's where you got to understand that you don't understand. And you get into even Dr. Edgar Mitchell. He said it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. And I get into all these scientific people that are making these statements. You got, can one cloak, can they disappear? Well, there has to be a science behind that if they can really do that. But I've heard people say this for years. It's all one disappear. So very credible sounding. Till they say that, then you kind of push them aside. I don't do that anymore, because I think there's a law behind that. And the law is anti-gravity. antimatter, excuse me. And Dr. Paul Dirac in 1933 won the Nobel Prize for antimatter. And it substantiated mathematically that energy and matter are interchangeable. Okay, well, that's an Einstein thing too. Equals
Correct.
energy, and so if energy and matter are interchangeable, maybe they can change their matter into energy. The energy won't have any substance to it. It just goes because we're energy, and our body's going to give out someday. We're going to change to something else, and that's what Stephen Hawking said too. That energy doesn't die. It just changes form. So if these things have learned how to manipulate the frequency so they can change their energy or the matter into energy, they would go out of your perception and they wouldn't leave a track anymore either. So that's my answer to that. They can cope. I mean, I know some very, very well that saw this happen, and that's when you really got to, man. And then I followed a trackway one time that stopped. My daughter had a
Right.
sighting. I started seeing where it could have went, and could not find where it could have jumped to a tree, jumped to a boulder, jumped to a bush. I couldn't find another track anywhere. And that kind of wakes you up a little bit. Well, maybe these people have got something going on here. So you get into quantum science, how antimatter works, and they can do that. If they can find the frequency, you can change matter. And Einstein says that too. So if you can find the right frequency of anything, you can change the matter. Whether it's your own illness, if you can find the frequency of that, you can change it. And that's how I think spirituality and quantum physics are synonymous. That's how I think the masters did their miracles, was through the laws of quantum physics. That's how I think we can do it if we can ever evolve into that understanding of how it works and how our consciousness really delves into stuff, and how it can anyway. But you do that through disciplines that we have to do. That's meditation, basically.
So where do you start with quantum physics? What are some of the, like, if somebody wanted to get into that, where would they start?
My book.
like quantum physics for dummies or something?
Well, yeah. If you just want to get into quantum physics, there's a lot of books on quantum physics. But get the ones for like the 101, the simple ones, so it doesn't throw away. Because it's like Schrodinger's cat. It's either dead or alive. You don't know until it's observed.
You
And
try
that's
it,
what
right?
quantum physics is. Nothing's real until it's observed. Well, then, even the Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Well, that kind of fits together with me. So, let's see, what Tesla said that what one man calls God, another one calls quantum physics. So they are synonymous, because you get into spirituality, and we're all spiritual beings, whether you like it or not. Now, I'm not religious, but I was raised religiously in a church. I don't even go to church anymore, but that doesn't mean we're not spiritual and don't catch what's really happening.
Same here.
But I like for things to be talked to me through my pineal gland just by meditation, and then try to get that in coherence with your heart, which has its own brain. But the biggest thing now is getting your heart, which is your gut feeling about something. Get that in coherence with this brain up here, so that, because it's going to control the body. And if this tells the body to do something, that's what the body should do. The brain has to be rhythmically, and you do that through balancing chakras, and just all that stuff is not devilish just because some religions say so. It's just not. It's something that's been taught in Oriental and ancient medicine and ancient. There's just so much out there that people could look into, and
A lot of that's suppressed, though, right? A lot of that information.
Again, if the government and whoever's in leadership can't control it, they suppress it. Yeah,
right.
I just say that over and over because that's what's happening now. They let out so much information that they think we can handle, that they can control. And they can't control the aliens now. They can't control the stuff with the UFOs. So you got to see more and more of it, I think, because the aliens are allowing it. They're coming in, and because we're getting too close to somebody pushing the wrong button on this planet. And I think that they don't want us to do that. They don't want us to destroy this planet. This planet is it's been destroyed before, almost completely, and we start over again,
Right.
These things are not wanting that. They want this planet to be whole. So they're working hard, trying to find the frequency of those that will open up and try to mind speak to them and tell them to do this or do that.
Right.
But you got to learn how to listen to that stuff, and if it's really coming from something that's positive. But you'll know that if you're balancing yourself, you'll know what's right and what's wrong. It's a gut feeling.
What are some of your UFO experiences? Can you get?
Mainly the one I saw at camp, which I saw with my own eyes, so I know that's what it was. Just a big blue ball coming down controlled from the sky, and that was the same time the Bigfoot stuff was happening. So uh, I know we lost it behind the trees, so I don't know what to think of that other than
Right.
it had something to do with all the strangeness just going up there. Sometimes you hear a big whoozing sound, like a big tuning fork going on, and it's daytime. You look around, you can't see the source of it at all. So what do you do with that? You just put it up on the shelf, you just can't figure it out. But was something cloaked up there? Was it a UFO? I don't know. It was so big, it could have been something like that. But something was making that sound, and we could not find the source of it. A lot of strange stuff. I think David Paulides, the missing 401 Hunted,
Yes.
was up there in 2018 filming me. He went up there. I've known David for a long time, a good friend of mine. He went up there to film the site. I'm glad I did because everything was on fire at that time. But he recreated this light rod that we saw. My wife and I saw going through the forest there. What do you do with that? I mean, you don't know what it's all about. It's just some type of energy form. It's definitely controlled. It can't just weave its way in and out of those trees without something controlling it. So, and orbs are a form of energy, I believe. And you can see those quite regularly up at Joe Hauser's Montana Vortex. If you got a camera, you may not see them with your eyes, but a camera's lens will pick up more than your eyes.
Right.
Like I say, your eyes have limitations with frequencies, and a camera's lens reaches out a little further. Some animals can see better too. Like a cat can see better than we can in the dark, especially.
So you've worked with David Paulides. What have you learned from him?
What did I learn from him?
Yeah, what have you picked up, if anything, from him? Anything that you probably didn't know before that he maybe brought to light? Because he's a very fascinating guy. He's.
I just came back from his premiere showing of 411, the UFO Connection, and that was in Phoenix, Arizona. I just got back from that a few days ago, and I've known David for a long time. He's going to speak for himself on any issues, but I'm glad he's trying to step forth with this because he's got a lot of credible stuff in this film. I encourage anybody to see it when it comes out. I think it's going to be out in December. And it's the UFO Connection.
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah.
It's good. And I've thought for a long time. In fact, Huffington Post in 2012 had an article that came out of the Eureka Times. I think it's Eureka Times, a paper in 1888, really old. A rancher and some Native Americans saw this big moon come down. 3 crazy bears jumped out of it.
Yeah. Bears.
Yeah. Well, that's what would you do? Your brain's only going to let you, see what it understands and knows.
Right. Well, it's like with Alexander the Great. When he saw UFO, he called it a shield. I think Christopher Columbus saw a UFO and he called it like a candlelight. So that's their vocabulary. That's they don't know what unidentified flying object is. So.
Even the Anunnaki could get into how
the
Sumerians cuneiform was made. The rock writings, first known language really, and that's where really the stories came from. Biblical stories that we have in our Hebrew Bible, and it was translated. And again, whatever the government wants to translate in their way. Right. It's a lot of history that people just don't look into that they should, maybe, in my opinion. And I have looked into a lot of that stuff, and it's a fun thing to do. My big eye opener was probably in Peru when I saw the enigmatic structures that were down there, and the skulls, the elongated skulls with Brian Forrester, and been there a couple times on two different missions with some scientists who were weighing the skulls, and they have about 30% more brain matter. These elongated skulls do.
Right.
They have a single parietal. Most of them do. Just one parietal bone. We have 2, one on each side with a sagittal suture, or none down there. 2 little holes in the back of the head. I got an exact copy of one of those, by the way, up here that Joe Taylor made for me. And just something's been here with higher knowledge, better knowledge than what we have now. And they've done some amazing things. You see those megalithic structures down there in Cusco and up on the mountain out of Cusco there,
Right.
Ollantaytambo, where humans can't do that today. How they put these rocks, boulders, over 100 ton together, just like a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, no mortar between them. And you see that stuff with your own eyes, it really opens you up a little bit to realizing something advanced knowledge has been here before, because we can't do that.
Right.
Precise, like so precise, and just anyway.
So Ron, I know that Lestrade has talked about his experiences and the telepathy part of it. What do you think about that? Do you believe that these creatures can speak telepathically?
Yeah, well, anything can if it gets on the right frequency.
Correct.
You can, I can, if we get on the right frequency. And you get these intuitions, these feelings that something's going to happen, like maybe the phone rings or something. You think the phone's going to ring, it's going to be Aunt Mary or somebody on there. And sure enough, the phone rings and it's Aunt Mary. Well, how does that happen? It happens through the quantum entanglement type stuff. And they can quantum entangle you. I know one time Warren Johnson and I stepped out of the shelter up there thinking we was going to see one of these things, because we really wanted to see one at the time. And we realized they weren't going to eat us or carry us away or hit us or something. So, we'll just jump out there through the doorway right quick. And one's got to be behind that tree, because we're here, it's so close right there behind the tree. So we start walking up towards that tree, and we both just get frozen. I mean, like a force field, I relate to it. You can't go any further. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and we weren't afraid. We were just frozen, and not cold frozen, just stopped, and we could go backward. So we did. Went back into the shelter. As soon as we got back in the shelter, it started making sounds again. I brought that up to a scientist one time. He said, well, science can't work with your fears. Of course, he's classical, right? Trained in the parameters of classical science, which if they don't get out of that box someday, science is supposed to learn things. It's not supposed to stop you from telling them something. And I said, it wasn't that. So he said, well, maybe it was pheromones or infrasound, because those things will affect humans.
Yes.
But infrasound, pheromones only work within the same species, so I put it off as infrasound. It happened to me once again up there in the forest when I was walking along. I didn't think about anything. Just all
What happened?
I got froze. Just stopped the same way. And I couldn't. I looked around. It was daytime. I couldn't see anything. I was in the forest, but I couldn't see any source that could be causing that. So I, as quickly as it came, it went away. But I don't know what it was. Same type feeling though. It just strange. So I think they probably do this in infrasound, because that does affect you. I have no doubt that they can reach that frequency of infrasound, which is below what we can hear, but it definitely affects humans, and that's known as fact.
Right.
So anyway, I think they can go into ultrasound. They can mimic just about anything, I think, with their vocal mechanism. It's so expansive and so big. It just, I don't know how to explain it, but they can reach, I think, any frequency they want to. And if they can manipulate their frequency, or the frequency of matter, they could heal you, they could do whatever they want to. They're not really supposed to interfere, I think, with our karma, what we're supposed to experience, because we're supposed to experience things on this planet. That's what we're here for. That's all we're here for, is to experience things. More importantly is how you respond to those experiences. And they're not supposed to tell you how to respond to it verbally. They're supposed to, if they're going to help you at all, it's going to be mentally, through a frequency entanglement.
Right. So okay.
People ask me if I had that up there. I too analytical. Most men are very analytical. Maybe that's why they were talking to me vocally out there, because I couldn't understand them.
Well, maybe because they were just trying to see. Because I feel like at times they do things just to get a reaction, to study, maybe to study a person or a group.
Well, I got to tell you this: they toy with you too.
Yeah.
They do. They toy with you. They'll set things up. They'll do things. One time, my daughter and I walked up there. We kept our supplies in these barrels cabled to the tree up there, and we walked up there with just our backpacks and food for a couple of days, and it had a loaf of bread in there, brand new loaf of bread. We decided to go out on a day walk, and I left it in my backpack, but I put my sweaty T-shirt from the day before over it, because it keeps bears out of it, Came back, and the loaf of bread was gone out of my pack. The wrapper was laying on the ground there. This T-shirt was still over my pack. Not a not a crumb of bread to be found. Of course, mice could have got the rest of it, but they didn't pull it out of the backpack and they put my T-shirt back up there. And a bear would have ransacked the whole thing, you know. So
Right.
it wasn't a bear. That's strange. Just strange things like that happen. And anyway, they do that stuff to mess with you, or they just like the bread, or maybe both.
Yeah.
We didn't get bread.
Right, but I mean, do you because I hear people gift. Do you think that's a good idea when they
Yeah.
do the gifting stuff?
I
Okay.
think so. Just make sure you set it so that you know what's really taken in, not some varmint
Right.
tied up high in a tree or something. So, and yeah, we've had gifted dots up there. It was more in the form of what we needed, what they thought we needed. That we would. I mentioned this in my book too. We would collect pine cones to start a fire. You know, they got the sap in them, and boy, it starts a fire like that. And we had this old tub up there that we used to water the horses with, but we had holes in it now. We collect our pine cones and put it in that bucket. And, and anyway, we come back from a hike one day and the thing was full of pine cones. We didn't do that. So that's kind of a gift. You know, and another thing in '74, when Bill and I heard that interaction going on, they had gotten to camp before we did. They had twisted off a couple alder branches from the spring and threw them up on top of the shelter. We didn't know that when we got there, but found it the next day. What we had done that summer was we had re-roofed the shelter with fresh plastic and put alder brush up there. But all that alder brush that we put up there had already dried out. This was 2 fresh ones. And actually that night when we went in the shelter, unknowingly, Bill dropped his dust cover off his rifle. And I didn't see that till I opened the door the next morning, and right there was a big track just to the right of the doorway, and the dust cover was laying there just hanging there. I mean, it hadn't been stepped on, so it tells me the track was made before we went in.
Wow.
And also we found a big track on the trail going in, so we knew they were around when we saw that. And it was interesting, probably the most exciting night I've had up there.
And that's the most like action you've had.
Well, that was a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want much more. Well, I would. I thought maybe they was going to let us right on the shoulder and I'd see the forest firsthand, you know. But next night, the Johnson brothers came in, and Lewis Johnson, who basically wants to hunt and get a deer and go home. Nice guy, though. He was frustrated because of every trick we tried, we couldn't get a finger on him, you know. And come in, they started pounding rocks. They started whooping again, just like they did the night before with Bill and I. He just got up and grabbed his rifle and flashlight and started shining. You don't shine a flashlight at these things, or they'd be gone in a heartbeat. And he did that with his rifle. I'm going to find out what these things are all about. He was going to shoot one if he could have saw it. And they were gone, just like that, in a flash. So that's too bad, because that would have been a heck of a night.
So do you believe, Ron, that they can do, as intelligent as they are, that they can do harm to us?
Oh, sure.
Like you have the missing 411, David Paulides talks about that. And a lot of times it's not anybody that's like a threat, like it could be a hiker that winds up missing. Do you believe that there are Bigfoot out there that are just messed up? They're just like, hey, I want to eat this.
As I said earlier, I think there's more than one kind. So there are malevolent ones. And I was just up at Portlock, Alaska, and that filming with the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, that Alaskan Bigfoot show.
I think I was on 4 and 5 or 5 and 6.
Yeah, great episode.
Anyway, yeah, those up there were reportedly killing people. They had lost 30 people out of their village. That's why they abandoned it in the late 40s. And they had pictures of this. And it just, yeah, and you got the Paiutes, the Lovelock Caves. I've been there 4 times trying to get.
That's in Nevada, correct?
Yeah, they said they were being
redhead giants,
cannibalistic giants. And anyway, the Portlock thing, they wanted my advice because I'm the Bigfoot guy, right? Well, no, there are no Bigfoot guys. I guess maybe I know a little more than most people do because I've had my experience with them. But when I flew over, because they flew me in there by jet tankers and down then way down by a helicopter into another area. And when I was flying over in the helicopter, circling around, looking at different things, I noticed years ago it had been timbered heavily. The trees were big again, but not as big as some of the old growth that were there. And from the pictures I saw, they had also been fishing a lot. I mean, heavily fishing, overfishing probably. Then I found out through the stories that they were mining there too. So I think probably they were encroaching too far and taking too much from the land. So the only thing I can suggest is having respect for the land more. So, which I think they would if they went back, but I'm not sure they're going to go back. They still don't know. I can't guarantee they're not going to get tore apart. I don't know what they were dealing with because no one's around that can talk about it now. It's so long ago.
Right.
So I just said that's what I think, and that's as far as I can go with it. But they were doing all those things. So these things have a real problem with us cutting trees. I mean, I've got so many reports over the years about these sightings being around when they were cutting trees and these things screaming when the trees were being cut.
Right.
Especially
Jerry Crew, right? Isn't he the one that was coined the term Bigfoot? Jerry Crew. He was
I think so, yeah.
He was part of the
Well, they have a
lumber
big foot,
company.
but again, they're not all the same.
Correct.
I gotta repeat that because aliens have manipulated the DNA of different species on this planet. They do that as experiments, and I think they've done it with primates. That's what Bigfoot. I think Bigfoot's been here long. Some of them, really common, have been here longer than we have as a species, and they've probably evolved more than we have. But then, what gave them the attribute for whatever they can do? Different ones have different attributes. I just believe that way, and I've done that through my research. I think we know that mankind has been here several times before the flood. The troglodytes did evolve, but something has manipulated them, manipulated the DNA in those. And I think they play trying to find a species that they can acclimate their species to this planet. And my thoughts, because they want the planet.
Do you think that's what they call the Nephilim in the Bible?
Well, the Nephilim were angels fallen with aliens that went against what they were supposed to do. They're supposed to be watchers, to help us. But they were actually started inbreeding with the human genome and messing with it, and they created the giants. And anyway, they were still around even after the flood. So I often wondered how that happened. But I talk about that in one of my books too, how that could have happened. And also, there's a theory that these things go underground, and a huge network underground of different species are down there. And the Emerald Tablets talk about what's above is say below.
Oh, that's the
as above, so below.
Yeah, that's the Hermes Trismegistus.
Hermetic, yeah, right.
Hermetic principles, yes.
That's something to look into. But it's fun, but how do you know what's above? What's right here above isn't below down there.
Correct.
Down that way. Because I have a theory that just about everything on this planet is a type of something that's in the cosmos or here somewhere, and not just the species that we're seeing, like a spider or bug or something, but bigger. And we have dominion here, so they are what they are right now. For us to learn how to deal with them, I think we should deal with all species on this planet. Trees, not just trees, but things. I mean, I don't like to kill things anymore. I was hunting. I became part of that hunting group up there, but I stopped hunting. One time when I shot a deer, the last deer I shot, and I was there watching when its eyes glazed over and whatever was part of it left. The deer was there. And I seen that same thing on my mother when she died. Her eyes glazed over and something left her. And it's just, you want to have your conscious evolve here. And you do that through, again, I get into meditation because I believe in that. And getting into trying to raise your personal frequency, your personal vibrational frequency, so that you become a better person. And do that through treating everything, all your experiences, reacting to it with love and compassion. It's Sunday, so I can talk like this, right?
Today's a perfect day to talk about it.
Good day to talk about this, but I talk about this all the time because I don't want people to, I think, understand what these masters are saying is, care about things. Don't destroy things. Stop killing people. We've got too many wars going on, too many people hurting other people, and that stuff needs to stop. We all ought to get in a consciousness of wanting to care about things and make things better. And don't consider yourself as a victim because you experienced something bad. learn from that. There's no such thing as losing. You either win or you learn something. So you learn something and react to it properly, and you're gonna raise your personal vibrational frequency. You're going to be a healthier person. That's a fact. Start eating right, breathing right, and living right, and you're going to be a better person. It's not to do with Bigfoot, but
Right. No, but it's the truth though. I mean, and I'm pretty sure that they're aware of what's going on in this world. I mean, they live on this planet too. So, you know, what we do to this planet affects them too. So I'm pretty sure they're aware of what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they're being seen more and more.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they're multiplying. Number one, they're coming out from underground or wherever they're coming from, where they're staying, they're coming out. And the UFOs are being seen more and more. Because I think we're on the edge of somebody pushing the wrong button somewhere over in Russia or something. And we're on the edge of something major trying to happen with our economy, with just everything. And I think we're going to see an inundation of UFOs, of aliens. And I think we're being inundated that now by the media, by things, theaters. When you go to a show, you're going to see aliens. You know, no big deal. So when we do have this happen, we won't be so shocked. There's a shock factor the government's worried about of what happens when this stuff is all out. And it's coming out slowly but surely, and I think it's coming out sooner rather than later.
All right, so let's go back to Paracas. Because were you able to actually see and hold one of those skulls?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is it true that it's missing the sagittal suture, which kind of signifies that it's not human?
Oh, it wasn't human. No, not totally human. It doesn't have a sagittal suture. You know, so we have two parietal bones, one on each side. I should have that down here. I could show it to you. I got a copy of one. And they've also been seen with the sagittal crest, because some people say, well, that's what the Incas did. They cradle boarded there. Well, they did.
But we know
Incas
that
did do that, but
yeah, they did
it
that.
didn't give more brain matter. It just probably gave the baby a bad headache, right?
Exactly.
Come on. But they only did it to the royalty youth. The Incas did, thinking it would give them the attributes that the pre-Inca people had, which did the megalithic structures all over up there, especially up the high country, Peru and Bolivia. Tiwanaku, have been to those places up there and seen a lot of stuff that really opens your mind up.
All right, awesome. All right, so you've also traveled to other places too, Ron. Well, let me keep it here domestically. I live in Florida. Have you been to Florida to look for the Skunk Ape at all, or have any stories about Skunk Ape?
I'm scheduled to speak down there on the 24th of April, I think, at the convention that they got going on next year. Me and David Pilates. I think Jeff Melvin might be there too. I'm not sure, but I know they got me about a month ago and got me to commit to that, so I did. No, I have not been into Florida to do that. I've been into Florida, but not studying anything like that. Yeah.
Because they say there's differences between the Sasquatch out here and, you know, in other places, particularly the Pacific Northwest. They claim that they're smaller here, but I've talked to people that have done research out here, and they say that's not exactly true, that they're just as big here as they are in the Pacific Northwest. But I don't know, I just thought maybe you might have heard anything about Skunk Ape.
Well, they can be different, not from the same creator, so to speak. We're hybrids. You really want to get into it. What created us was alien.
Right.
You can call it God. You can call it, it's very high frequency energy that has made us in his image, or their image, because it's plural, definition of God. In fact, in the cuneiform, the word Elohim, Elihim,
right, Elohim,
is what is term for gods, and it's plural, and every time it's mentioned 2,500 times in cuneiform. And that's the Sumerian text, that's where the Hebrew stories came down from. That's where you get into the study of Abraham and Sarah, where they were raised in that culture. And so he's the father of the Hebrew nation. So there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't really follow that much. But if you want to understand, you have to look into it.
Right. All right. So let's get into the connection with the ufology, because there's this meme out there. I don't know if you've ever seen this meme where they took a still from the Patterson-Gimlin film and they put like a ammunition belt, like Chewbacca, and they gave it like the what is it, the crossbow that he has, which signifies that, you know, Bigfoot could be alien, maybe not really originally from planet Earth. Maybe he was brought here. Do you subscribe to that, or do you think it
Well,
was
I subscribe to aliens interfering with the genome of a primate here, and that would have been the troglodyte, I think, the caveman, and because that's what I subscribe to. But there've been different aliens here. It's not like there's just one
Right.
alien out there. There's all kinds of things in this universe that we are going to be privy to someday when we leave this embodiment. Then we'll know. We'll know everything.
All right, last question, because I know you got to go, and I don't want to drag this out any longer than it should be. But what are your thoughts on the government knowing that these things exist and maybe having some sort of specimen, either alive or dead, having like a body?
I think they know it all, but they can't control it, so they don't let that out. That's my opinion. I've heard story after story over the years of the government involvement with these things. I've heard some of it from guys that's worked in Area 51 even who know about it. You also got the Livermore Labs, which is supposedly when Hawkins was down there at Berkeley, they had 2 in captivity. They just walked out through the walls. Now, that's energy.
Where was this at?
Livermore Labs in California.
Oh, wow. Okay. I never heard that story.
Yeah, well, it's kind of they don't let that stuff out. How do I get it? Insiders generally
Right.
that know about it. And you have to just try to vet that stuff to see if these people are credible. And I usually do before I say anything. My source is credible. I think that's what inspired Stephen Hawkins to write The Time. You can't talk about that. They threaten you too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you talk about it, I've not been threatened that I know of.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah. If you've been threatened.
Well, we had some black helicopters fly over, but
Oh, well, that's not good.
Never got shot at.
Okay, well,
or threatened.
That's even better.
Don't have to talk about it because they're allowing this to come out nowadays from people like me. There's a lot of people talking about it.
Well, there's too many of you. There's too many of you coming in.
There's a lot of people out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just one guy in a bucket.
What do you think of Bob Lazar and his story?
Oh, I like it. Yeah, I'm with him because he got covered up too.
Right. Right.
Yeah, he's genuine in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that originally when he came out, they tried to obscure his face and his voice. So it was obvious that he wasn't trying to get fame from it, because then he would have just came out and would have been himself. It wasn't until later on when people figured out who he was, then he came out with, his name and everything. But let me ask you about certain footage that's been out there. Patterson Gimlin film. What do you think of that? Is that legit?
Yeah, it's real.
And what about
studied second only to the Kennedy assassination. It's been studied a lot, and I know the guys that studied it, and they couldn't have done a suit like that. Now, I'm not saying Patterson wasn't trying to do something like that, but he got on a real one there. This Bob Hieronymus, whatever his name is, who says he was the guy in the suit.
Right.
He probably was scheduled to be the guy in a suit, and he might have been a guy in a suit, but he wasn't that guy or that person, that female. That's a real Bigfoot, and I think it's part human. But other than that, I know Bob Gimlin quite well, and I know if he knew it was something phony, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing now, which is out there and about. He's still hanging around in his 90s, or like Peter Byrne. Peter Byrne's 95 or 96 now. I just talked to him the other day. He's still out and about.
They're getting up there, like.
Well, we all are, And again, I guess it's more we're supposed to respond to, and that's all life's about, is our experiences.
Okay, another footage is, have you ever seen the Freeman footage?
Yeah, I believe that one too.
You believe that one too?
Yeah, it just sounds too legitimate.
And I think it had also like a baby.
Yeah.
All right, and then Todd Standing, his footage. What do you think of that?
That's
a tough subject.
Only it's because it may be real. I'm not saying what, because I don't like to chime in on things I haven't really. But I know he's really won his stuff to be out there. So I think I know some people that's been with him, and they say he really wants, because he's had some experiences, no doubt about it. I don't think, but he wants it so bad to be recognized that he's reaching out a little bit too far sometimes, is what I understand. But I don't want to judge him because I'm not that person.
No, I understand. It's just that like if that footage is real, that's like the probably the best footage ever. If you
If
think
it's
about
real,
it,
yeah,
because of the
yeah,
clarity, you know how clear that is compared to the Patterson Gimlin and
yeah,
others.
yeah,
You know?
right. Yeah, it'd be nice if that could be established one way or the other, but because of the controversy around him, uh, it's hard to get attention. You can't get academia to grab all of that stuff. You know, they don't want to take out of their security blanket. And you mentioned Bigfoot, and they just started laughing. Like Al Berry, he got laughed at a lot trying to get somebody to study these sounds, but it's paid off because they finally found someone that was open-minded that would just take them biasly one way or the other, tell us is it good or bad. There's no 60 cycle hum in it. Of course, we were told that by the I.E. Tybal, who studied the Nixon Watergate tapes. There's no 60 cycle hum in it, which would have showed pre-recording or re-recording. There's no alteration in the speed, which that's what he was accused of, the speeding up or slowing down and playing something backwards. And none of that was taking place because he had the original tapes that the electrical engineer studied. And he's written a lot of papers, electrical engineer, Dr. Curlin. He's nobody's slouch. I mean, this guy's a professor, electrical engineer with
Legit.
high clearance. Yeah.
All right, Ron. So what's next for Ron Morehead? Another book, documentary?
I'm writing another book right now. That's another step out there, and try to clarify some of these things that we've talked about, the cloaking thing, the energy transfer, things like that. There's a science back there that you can talk about, like Paul Dirac, when he established antimatter. People need to understand that stuff and I'm trying to get that out in my lifetime and hope that it connects. And if this connects with people, fine, it's supposed to, but if it doesn't, that's okay. You know, I just saying what I think. I don't, I encourage any researcher out there to look into quantum physics, because if you're only going to go by classical science and by Newtonian physics, you're probably never going to get to the secrets of this entity, why we can't find them, why all this stuff's going on, how these reports might have some validity to them. If you don't look into quantum science, you're missing out on part of your equation that you need. Like Edgar Mitchell said, it takes both sciences together, classical science and quantum sciences together, for clear perception. And he knows, those guys know, you know. But so many people want to get stuck in that box because so many academia say, well, this is where you got to be, or it's not going to be real. It's like the DNA stuff, you know, the thumbs down because it had a human component to it. Well, they are part human. They're just, in my mind, there's no doubt to it now, because you got the studies that we've done, plus the DNA that's been done has been discounted, but I think that's all going to be vindicated.
So in our lifetime, do you think that Bigfoot will, like, there will be information that comes out that these things do exist?
Well, the information's out there. It's just getting academia to swallow it, you know. People like Jeff Meldrum are going to help because they're in the side of realizing there's something there because of his studies and all. And I knew Grover Krantz too. I didn't know him, but he was in the same town I was, up in Washington, when I lived back there. He died, I think, in 2012, but he never would even give me an audience. He wouldn't talk to me or Al Berry because he didn't believe the sounds could be real, because only humans can make a vocalization that forms a language. So he put thumbs down on it, but that's academia for you. I put my hat off to Jeff Meldrum, to John Benedigo, to these guys who did stick their neck out, and are sticking their neck out to this day with this subject matter, and trying to get academia to take it seriously. So I appreciate those guys. I was in Russia with both those two guys, John and Jeff both, and spent quite a bit of time with them. And
for the Yeti, we got in Russia because you.
Yeah, the wild man in Siberia. We went into Moscow, spoke at the Darwin Museum there, and had dinner with the not the mayor, but the senator of Moscow,
Right.
And they flew us way over to Siberia, and met with this, bust us out to this village. And shore people, SHOR, who are Mongolia descendants, and they've been seeing the wild man, the Yeti. They took us way back in the wilderness in a big truck. The tires on it was taller than me, through
Right.
rivers and all that stuff, and went into this cave. And it was on the Moscow news, you know, after we got finished. It was an adventure. and we found a cave and, looked at some tracks. But when someone takes you to a spot and tells you this is what we're doing, and then you find something, you never know unless you found it yourself.
I got you.
So we were 95%. It could be something there because it's a total wilderness area. And anyway, it was good. The Russian government goes with it wholeheartedly. They're into it. Our government's the one that's not. They don't want the word out. There could be
they don't want to let anything be known.
They don't want a 10 or 12 foot tall monster out there running because there are some, like I say, malevolent ones who are dangerous, and that again depends on what created them, what entity put what factors in the DNA to cause them to be the way they are. So it's I just tell people, keep your guard up, get yourself in coherence, your heart and your brain, everything going, working right for yourself. You will know when something's right or wrong. Your heart will tell you.
Right. Do you believe that there's different types of Sasquatch all over the world? Like,
I do.
So, like, have you talked about? Well, not talked about. Have you looked into like the Yowie in Australia?
Yeah.
Almasti.
I want to go over there. I thought I was going to go over there with this production crew one time, but it fell apart. But yeah, the above Bhutan and Nepal, Bhutan, this group went up in there, sponsored by National Geographic. They had a geneticist with them, and they took eDNA, which is environmental DNA, out of some bipedal tracks they've seen in 17,000 feet. So and it came back 99% human. So that you don't hear about that much. But there was a whole, I saw it because I know the people over there, and they sent me a download of the whole thing before it came out. And I don't know too many. I haven't talked to hardly anybody that's ever saw it because the government don't want that stuff being shown. It's amazing what our government needs to start doing for us. If we're putting them in the office, they should. But they don't want the panic to happen because there's going to be a whole lot of things happen. I think maybe in your lifetime. I don't know about mine. I mean, I'm 80 years old now, and I hope to be around for more experiences and to do more of this stuff. This is all I do now is talk about this and programs. So it's fun and it's exciting, and I think I'm on the right trail here. But then we all think we're that way, right?
Look, at least you're doing something, and other people are doing things, and eventually, I think everybody's going to connect. Because I think like you are one piece of a puzzle. Dave Politis is another piece of a puzzle. Meldrum, and once you guys all get together and you put all these, you'll get the answers that you want eventually.
Yeah. Well, the big deal with me, and I don't like to say this, ego is what you get out of the way here. Get ego out of the way. But
you can do it, Ron. It's fine.
I experience these things, and I know things that some of these people just don't know because I've experienced it. They think, well, you didn't recognize it right, or you're no drugs, nothing like that was involved up there. This is all real, and what happened to us up there, I think. The reason for it, because they're not really supposed to mess with you like they did with us, I don't think, was probably so I could be on your program today.
Yes. Well, thank you for being my 20th guest. I didn't know if I was going to make it to 20, but I do that. And it's funny because it's my 20th episode on November 20th. So,
wow. Well, congratulations.
Isn't that great? Thank you so much, Ron.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
No, it's great. You're a legend. And I would love to have you back on after you write your next book. You said you're going to be out here in Florida next year, so I'm going to see if I can make that and hopefully meet you face to face. But I wish you nothing but the best on your endeavors, and thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, Carl. Good to be with you.
All right. Yes, sir. You have a great day, sir. Bye.
You too.